Hi, I'm Andrew Lewin, founder of SpeakUpForTheBlue.com, a place where ocean conservation meets the world. I found a Facebook group a couple of weeks ago of a number of divers getting together to protect the ocean. This group is not your regular run-of-the-mill group. They are outspoken individuals who are sick and tired of the way we are treating the oceans. I've got the co-founder of the Tank Bangers, Terry Nichols, on the program today to discuss what the Tank Bangers are all about and why the group was started. Hi Terry, welcome to the program.
Hey, how's it going? How are you, Andrew?
Good, good. Thanks a lot for doing this interview. I really appreciate it.
No problem. Happy to be a part of it.
Great, great. I've been curious of the Tank Bangers ever since I joined the group. And so can you just briefly describe what the Tank Bangers are all about?
Briefly, the Tank Bangers are, we're just pretty much you summed up more or less. We're just a group of, it started off as we were just a group of divers. We all work and live in and around the marine environment, and that's where we earn our crust, that's where we earn a living. And we're all very, very passionate about protecting it. So the Tank Bangers group kind of came about, and we all kind of just got together and decided that, hey, hang on a minute, we all share this same vision and this same kind of fear that we've got going on with the oceans right now. And the Tank Bangers group just kind of grew out of there. We are basically just a fun group trying to get a message across in such a way that it's not that people are going to pay attention to it and notice it, rather than feel that they're being preached at again. You know, oh, here's another environmental bunch of nutcases and they're all jumping up and down about something.
Yeah.
Want to come across as that. There is an important underlying message that we want to try and get across to people. We want to kind of do it in such a way that it's fun. Right. People can be enlightened and educated and informed all at the same time, and hopefully try and make a difference. Fantastic.
That's a great description. So before we go really dive deep into the Tank Bangers, I want to get to know more about you, and maybe a bit about your co-founder Nick Steck. But first we'll go into you, because I think knowing more about you will really get a good idea of how the Tank Bangers kind of came to be and what they're about. So where did you grow up, and you've moved several places, so can you just give me a little bit of a description of that?
Well, basically, in a nutshell, I was actually born in Manchester in the UK. Didn't spend very long there because my father was in the Royal Air Force, so we moved around quite a bit. We were posted from various places all around. So that's where I originally come from. I've lived in various places around the world. I've been lucky enough to live in some beautiful places. But growing up, yeah, I've always had a fascination for the sea and for the oceans and stuff like that. But yeah, Manchester is where I'm originally from.
Okay. And so what are some of the beautiful places? I'm curious to know where you got to move around to.
I've lived in Egypt. I've lived in Thailand. Well, currently residing in Thailand, not permanently, but I'm currently spending a bit of time over here. I've been lucky enough to spend quite a bit of time in the States. My other half is from Texas, so I've been seeing quite large parts of Texas. I've lived, well, not lived, but spent some considerable time over in the Caribbean in Belize, which is where I originally started to dive. It's one of the places my dad was lucky enough to get posted to. Yeah, yeah. And yeah, Mum and Dad used to holiday a lot in Malta. I've lived in Cyprus. So yeah, most places have been pretty much near where there's an ocean or a large, sizable piece of water that I can get into at some stage.
Right, right. Now, was it when you started diving, was that the time where you really started to gain sort of an interest and an appreciation for the ocean, or was it before that?
It was a little bit before that, actually. I've always been a water baby. I've always loved swimming and being in and around water. I know it sounds like a bit of a cliche, but my big thing as a kid was dinosaurs. I absolutely loved dinosaurs. I was dinosaur mad. I had posters and colouring books and little, monsters and plastic models and all kinds of things. And I don't know how I got from dinosaurs to whales. Cetaceans is still a subject very, very close to my heart. I love whales and dolphins. I guess it's because you've got dinosaurs and there's something even bigger than dinosaurs. Wow, that's cool. And they're still alive today.
Right.
Brilliant. I need to know more about this.
Right.
Plus that, and the other thing was my dad was a fisherman. we used to do quite a bit of coarse fishing. He taught me to fish up in the River Lossiemouth, which is way up north in Scotland. It's not quite the end of the world, but you can see it from standing on the beach.
Right.
He taught me to fish there, and we'd catch little roach and dace and chub and stuff like that. But the nice thing that my dad taught me, one of the things I always remember, is that once we'd caught the little fish, then we'd just let it go so that other people could catch that fish, and we weren't taking too much. So that kind of message that the group, the tank bangers, are trying to get across now, I kind of always had it with me,
Right.
Largely thanks to my dad in that respect. But yeah, I've always been kind of interested in that sort of thing before I started diving. That was really just the icing on the cake for me. I finished it right.
Right. Okay. And you mentioned the diving in Belize. Other than the fascination with the ocean, why did you start scuba diving?
Believe it or not, it was quite by accident. Dad being in the RAF, they paid for us to fly over every summer holiday. The RAF would pay for me and my brother to go over and see Dad in Belize, because it was a detachment where not all of us could go. Mum had to stay back in the UK; she had a job, and so we could go over during the summer holidays and go and see Dad. One particular morning at about 7 a.m, if I recall, Dad came marching into the hotel room and said, "Come on, boys, we're going scuba diving." Which got me and my brother, what? Scuba diving? At the time, we were both happy just messing around off the jetty with mask and fins and snorkel and just checking out the stuff that was down there at the time. I mean,
Right.
that was more than enough for me. I was in the water, I was seeing stuff. So we were marched down to the jetty, down to the dive centre under duress. And we met up with the diving instructor, Sylvan, who I still remember to this day, Sylvan Foreman.
Yeah.
And he introduced us to diving. He said, "Right, here's a manual. Start reading this. Look, chapter 1, knowledge abuse to do." And we were like, "Oh God, it's like being back at school." We hated Dad. What are we doing? The way that the open water course is structured, just very, very shortly, is that you do a little bit of theory, a little bit of knowledge, and then you actually get in the water. And even back then, this was back in 1990, you were able to get into the water at a very early age, and that was it. That was the clincher. Me and my dad was already a diver, but he was going to go through the course with us as well anyway. Got into the water and put the sucky, breathy thing, the regulator, in the mouth. Me and my brother underwater, there's fish everywhere, and it was like, actually, this is kind of cool. I like it.
Yeah.
And that was it. From that moment on, I was absolutely hooked. From 7 o'clock in the morning when Dad was saying, "Okay, let's go scuba diving," to, "Oh God, I don't want to go," and like half a day later into the course, and we're already asking Dad, "Dad, can we do the advanced course? Dad, can we do the advanced course? Dad, kind of spent more money than I think he was anticipating on," but that was really what started it for me. Snorkeling is great, and I still love it and still enjoy it to this day, but getting down there and amongst it all, that was just mind-blowing for me. It still is. It's a joy that I've never lost.
Yeah, I mean, I'm the same way. When I first started diving, once you get in that water and become that observer and get to watch everything firsthand, it's like you're in your very own Jacques Cousteau movie, live, kind of thing.
You are part of it. You are part of what's going on. Yeah, that's the thing.
Yeah, and I think you do gain an appreciation for, how big the ocean is and how sensitive it is when you're down there, and how delicate a lot of the things are, and how a fin can hit a coral and break it instantly. And you realize that you have to be careful and things like that. But no, that's a really good story. So, going from learning to scuba dive, doing quite a bit of traveling, what made you really start the Tank Bangers or help co-found that? Like, what led you to that? What were you doing first? What were you doing right before the Tank Bangers?
Before the Tank Bangers, I was and still am active in this particular area. I'm a diving instructor. Okay. And I've been working in the diving industry for many, many years now. And that's pretty much what I was doing. I was still in and around what I care and I'm passionate about. I did my instructor course back in 2006. Okay. Before that, I was diving as often as I could after college and university, and get all that out of the way. And I'd live to dive during the weekends and dive pretty much wherever I could. And it wasn't to the being on holiday. I was on holiday with Mum and Dad in Malta, and we went and did a wreck. I can't remember the name of it, which I think was the El Faroud, if I remember rightly. We went out there to do that wreck and meeting some of the dive guys and instructors on the boat that took us out there. It was like, hang on a minute. So currently at the time I was working in logistics before I made the transition to full-time diving instructor. I was, well, hang on a minute. So let me get this straight. You guys get to live out here in a beautiful country, yeah, and you get to go diving every day of the week, more or less, yeah, and you get paid for it, yeah. I'm in the wrong job here. It's time to change my career direction, and that was what made it for me. And decided that, yeah, I'm going to get into full-time teaching. And I was working in Sharm el Sheikh in Egypt, on the southern Sinai tip, which is where I met the rest of the reprobates from the Tank Bangers group, particularly Mr. Nichols Steck.
Right. I mean, that's all. So you guys were all working down there, and what made you guys get together and just being like, okay, you know what, I'm sick of the way things are going with the ocean. I'm sick of watching. What made you get to that? What empowered you enough? Like, was it one particular thing that just said, you know what, something's got to be done, or I'm at my breaking point, or was it just a combination of things?
No, I think you're right. It was an accumulation of all of those things over a long period of time, being in this industry and working in this environment and getting to take people out and share that passion that you have that got me into diving in the first place, and teach them and say, look, this is what we see down here. This is our office. This is where we spend our time. And to see it degrade over the years, I've been full-time teaching diving now for nearly 6 years, but in the 20 years, nearly 21 years that I've actually been diving, even I've noticed, I mean, that's a small amount of time, really. Yeah. Even I've noticed changes all over the place. And you start to ask questions. You start to think, well, what's causing this? And that leads you down a path. Once you go down that path and you start to think, all of these questions that you need answers, you start to get answers to some of them, which invariably leads to more questions, and it starts to build a picture. And once you start to get a grip and a perception of what that picture is, it eats away at you, and it really starts to make you think, well, hang on a minute, this is wrong. We can't continue like this. Something has to be done. So meeting Nick, the other member of the group, well, there's actually a lot of us, but it was me and Nick, back in 2007, we both shared the same passions. We both think very, very much the same along those lines, and we would have regular conversations, over a couple of cold ones after a day's work, and we'd sit there and we'd put the whole worlds to right. We had many, many ideas, many thoughts on how we could do this and how we could make a change. But because of work commitments, they pretty much stayed just that. They just stayed as ideas. I mean, it was something we were both passionate about, but just never had the opportunity to get around to really doing something about it. And it wasn't until December 2010 last year, Sharm el Sheikh unfortunately was in the grip of shark fever. That made the news. You probably heard about that. There was
I remember that.
Very unprecedented, very strange shark attacks that go around in Sharm. There were a number of factors that led up to that, which I don't need to go into details, but it meant that the diving industry in Sharm quietened down a little bit. Plus that, and it was a quiet season anyway. That, plus the fact there was a revolution brewing just around the corner as well. There were several factors that kind of led quite a few of us to have quite a bit of time on our hands, which invariably led to the first video, which is the first video that we did, and then from there it kind of grew.
Okay. Now this first video, I've seen it. What was the message that you want to get across in that video? And had you shot a video like any kind of video like that before?
Well, a little bit about Nick first of all. Nick is a videographer. That's what he does. That's his passion. He's also an instructor as well, a damn good one, believe it or not. Don't tell him that. Oh damn! But, no, his real passion is videographer. He's one of the finest that I've ever worked with anywhere in the world. And I've worked with quite a few videographers. He really has a good eye for camera and stuff like that. So that's what he does. I still teach. That's my passion. And we found ourselves basically in the water. The message that we wanted to get across initially was, hey, we're bored. Look, we're just sticking around the water right now. There wasn't really any focus on that message. It was we'd always planned to do something like that. The initial video we did, just for those that don't know, we did a cover of the Bohemian Rhapsody by Queen, which was called the Bohemian Massacre. And it was just a few of us. There was obviously me and Nick. There's a very good friend of us as well called Kevin Grice. He was in there, and Mr. Al Wesley. We were the guy, and Dominic, whose second name escapes me because it's South African and difficult to pronounce. Anyway, so we all jumped in the water and decided we were going to just do this video and made it and stuck it on YouTube, on Facebook. And people went nuts. They loved